Patriotic Party's interim injunction application seeking to prevent the Electoral Commission from proceeding to rerun elections in 19 out of the 281 polling stations in the ABLEKUMA North constituency on July 11. Now, the presiding judge, Ali Babaturi, ruled that the balance of convenience favors the Electoral Commission constitutional duty to ensure representation for the people. Now, lawyers for the NPP parliamentary candidate Nana Akua Afriyie sought the court to grant a 10-day ex parte injunction against the Electoral Commission. They noted this would grant the party adequate time to serve the Electoral Commission with an application asking for an explanation regarding the failure to adhere to the High Court's earlier directive to collate and declare results of 3 outstanding polling stations. Lead counsel for the NPP candidate Nana Akua Afriyie, Gary Nemakon, argued that following the High Court's directive in January, the Electoral Commission acknowledged in multiple public communications, including a press release and briefing by the Deputy EC Chair, Dr. Bosman Asari, in Parliament, that only 3 polling stations remained uncollated and further requested for security to do so. Now, Gary Nemakon indicated that the Commission's actions contravened the court orders, stressing that all the polling stations' results or pink sheets had already been certified by party agents and pressing officers at the time of the election, making a rerun both unnecessary and unlawful. But presiding judge Ali Babaturi, in his ruling, asserted that the Electoral Commission has the constitutional mandate to conduct elections for constituents. He added that the Electoral Commission also has the power to adequately compensate Nana Akua Afriyie in damages if she wins the application to quash the EC's decision to rerun the elections. With this decision by the High Court earlier today, the Electoral Commission is expected to carry out the rerun of the 19 polling stations in the ABLEKUMA North constituency on Friday, July 11. That's just some 48 hours away from now. Now, take a listen to Deputy General Secretary of the NDC, Mustafa Bande, speaking to 3FM after the ruling earlier today.
That the action by the NPP are full of frivolity, vexatiousness. There's no way to restrain the Electoral Commission from giving fidelity to the law. You can't stop the Electoral Commission from giving fidelity to the law. You know, the only way that can happen is in a banana republic. And the MPP knew that the action they are commencing is not really seeking a remedy in court, but an action to cover up for the unfitness to participate in the election. While they are in court, they are in ABLEKUMA trying to test their popularity there. They are campaigning, except to say that they know that there's no way they will win that election. They know that their candidate is not a misfit and a mismatch on public record, having done things wrong to disgrace the Republic of Ghana. They know that. And they know that the NDC's candidate is a strong candidate. But that constituency, the MPP have been there for some time. They've abused the goodwill, and we have won that seat. They tried to frustrate it, but the rule is that we have won. And Friday's election will just give manifestation of what the people contemplated on doing. You can't take that candidate by the MPP to Parliament. It will be a mockery. Complete mockery. Please, the MPP knows that in terms of organization, they are not well organized to participate in any election. Even their own meetings, when they go, they stab people with knives. The last meeting they tried to hold after 20 December to the December election, it was murderous, blood was shed. They know they are disintegrated and they cannot participate in the election. They also know that the NDC is solid and intact. We are going into that election in one accord. They also know that for the sake of good governance, that the stability of this country is a testament of the NDC's goodness. There's no way Ghanaians will vote for them. So what people are Ghanaians.
Well, that's Mustafa Bande is the Deputy General Secretary of the ruling NDC there. Let's stay a bit further on this matter here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We're also on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and on W 93.5 in Wa and beyond. And the man who has been testing the pulse of the constituency even before the December 7 elections, Nana Akua is the Executive Director of Global Info Analytics. He's joining us on the telephone right now. Nana Akua, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
Now, prior to the December 7 elections in 2024, you had polled the ABLEKUMA North constituency. What was the outcome of that poll ahead of that election in December?
Right, thank you very much for having me. In the last poll that was conducted in ABLEKUMA North, it was still a very close race, but the NDC candidate was leading by a very small margin. And then about 8% of people were saying that they were not going to vote, and about 2% said they were undecided. So even though it was very tight, the NDC candidate was leading before the election.
I see. But this is a constituency that the NPP has won since 1996, since the constituency was created, is it not?
Absolutely. And it tells you that if NDC was very competitive in that place or that constituency at the time, it means something magnetic or size of tsunami was coming. And it is for that reason that we saw what we saw on election day. And up to now, we haven't seen resolution until maybe Friday.
I see. But based on the details of your poll, what was then leading to the flip? Because if the NPP has won this constituency with wide margins since 1996, what influenced the decision by the people you polled, for instance, to now vote for the NDC, or the decision to vote for the NDC in December 7?
Everything was hinged on the economy, Alfred. The economy in 2024 was seen to be in dire straits, and people were not happy with what was going on. And for that matter, they wanted a new direction. And that meant that anything to do with MPP at the time really was becoming a toxic for many people. And ABLEKUMA North was no exception. Indeed, if you look at Greater Accra, the winning that the NDC got in Greater Accra was driven by MPP voters. MPP voters turned their back against their own party and went for NDC. And there was no way traditionally you would see NDC being competitive in ABLEKUMA North. They had to take MPP's vote to switch camp for this to happen. So they switch camp.
I see. So a lot more of the NPP supporters or persons who were voting for them in previous elections decided now to vote for the NDC.
Exactly. I mean, the polls were showing before the election that about 35% of people who voted for Nana in 2024 intended to vote for NDC candidate in 2020. In 2020, intended to vote for NDC candidate in 2024. So the signs were there. Clearly, it was there.
I see, because if you look at the previous elections, for instance, in 2020 and then also in 2016, the NPP won the ABLEKUMA North with wide margins, over 1,500 and sometimes in over 2,000 difference of votes. But then yesterday, listening to the General Secretary of the party address the press, they are of the view that their candidate, Nana Akua Afriyie, won the constituency with 414 vote difference.
It tells you the swing that we witnessed there was unprecedented. I mean, to have led with nearly 30,000 in the previous election and now only 414, it shows something, dramatic has happened in the constituency. And this can only happen with the help of MPP voters.
I want to find out how this strikes you. I mean, the decision by the party to not contest in the rerun of the elections in the 19 polling stations on Friday.
I think the signs are clear that if they contest, they will lose. And initially, I think the court case would have given them a very good reason to boycott. Luckily, today, the court has ruled that, no, the EC can go ahead. For that reason, I think their strongest argument against going for the ballot has been kind of neutralized. If they don't participate, it will be clear that it's because they know they will not going to win the election.
I see. And this is the point where I bring in Solomon Owusu, who is a leading member of the Movement for Change. They are not contesting this election, but he's a political analyst as well who has been commenting on this particular development in the ABLEKUMA North constituency for quite a while now. And all of this, the Electoral Commission says, Mr. Owusu, it's their own way of bringing finality to this deadlock in the ABLEKUMA North constituency, which has led to they not having representation in Parliament as we speak. Now, you've recommended that there should have been a rerun of the entire, polling stations in 281 of them in the constituency. Why is that?
Good evening, Alfred, and to your cherished listeners. I believe that the conduct of the Electoral Commission and the parties involved in this election and necessitated a total rerun of the entire constituency. They are now finding full pink sheets. All the sides are claiming that they can't find their pink sheet. The issue that is the referee who's supposed to have a pink sheet that is key says he doesn't have his pink sheet. So how can we validate anything that they are turning out? So I was of the opinion that in order to restore any confidence in the electoral process, we go back and do a rerun. After all, each side is claiming victory. So if you are sure of yourself and we are going to deal with the same voter register, with the same people, with the exception of few who might have relocated within this short period or died, then we can go back and do a rerun to, as it were, determine who actually won the election on the 7th of December. That was why I called for a rerun.
I see. But then the Electoral Commission's decision to rerun the 19 polling stations elections was predicated on the fact that the officers manning those 19 polling stations could not verify the carbon copy or the scanned copies of the pink sheets that the NPP provided. Because as you indicated, because of the violence that occurred during the coalition process in that constituency, in the specific polling stations as mentioned, the Electoral Commission doesn't even have a copy of the results. The NDC doesn't have a copy. It is the MPP that provided the scanned copies which the NDC contested. And then also these presiding officers could not authenticate or validate the results in there. What could the Electoral Commission have done differently?
That's what I'm saying, that I do not disagree with the decision of the EC as well as the court. But, Alfred, one thing that all of us must for is the prosecution of the returning officer for ABLEKUMA North. I mean, nobody can convince me that all of a sudden tax decided to target the returning officer, took away the pink sheet and got them bent without the returning officer reporting the matter to the police. The EC has not given us any indication that it has reported the matter. What it means is that though rerun is very necessary, we must make sure that the EC officials who allowed their pink sheet to be destroyed, allegedly, because I don't have any evidence that it was destroyed, to face the full rigors of the law. Why is it that the Electoral Commission under the CIP 127 is mandated to paste all the pink sheets at the various polling stations? Yet when you go to these 19 polling stations, you can't even find a single of these pink sheets. So if you allow them to go off the hook and go and do a rerun, then what is going to happen tomorrow is that if I'm in a contest with Alfred and I lose to Alfred legitimately, and I know the returning officer, all that I have to do is go and see the returning officer, my friend, burn your pink sheet, let me also burn mine, so that at the end of the day, when we are looking for pink sheets to validate your victory, there will be none. And so calls for a rerun to that extent. We cannot be setting this bad precedent. Yes, the rerun is good, but people that allowed us to get to this situation must be brought to book.
And in this case, that's the Electoral Commission or the perpetrators of the violence, essentially.
No, first of all, the Electoral Commission is for no reporting the matter. We cannot take their position serious. So
right.
The returning officer has to be brought to book. He has to be prosecuted.
I see. And Right, and this is why I bring Dr. Jonathan Asantiochi is a lecturer, the senior lecturer at the University of Cape Coast. He's a political analyst as well. Doc, can you hear us? Good evening. Thank you for joining us on Zoom.
Good evening, Alfred.
Great. Now,
is that Solomon on the
yes, that's Solomon. That's Solomon you've been listening to. He's of the view.
My regards.
Perfect. Thank you. He's. Yeah, we could do this after. Now, just quickly, he is of the view, that Solomon is of the view that before even talking about the rerun, we should have also seen some culpability and accountability, as it were, on the part of the Electoral Commission and also the perpetrators of the said violence that has led to this decision to rerun the polling station, the elections in the 19 polling stations. How does that strike you?
Well, ideally that should have been the case. But as it stands now, we have a job at hand. And that job is to ensure that ABLEKUMA North, have a representative in Parliament that will be doing things in the name and on behalf of the people of ABLEKUMA North. That is more important than prosecution for now. That being said, you see, over the years, some of us have been very consistent with the current crop of the Electoral Commission. I have been very consistent. And so I wrote yesterday that, in fact, as far as the EC is concerned, the NPP is being served with a portion of the poison that they helped to create. They are being served with a portion of the poison that they helped to create. Look, this delayed collation was a grand scheme. It is a symptom, of a grand orchestrated scheme. Nobody can argue with me otherwise, because the way and manner it happened, it was virtually happening in so many other places, so many other constituencies, and that couldn't have been just a fluke. It was something that was planned. But as to whether the top commissioners are part or not, well, only one. I have called on the president to institute an inquiry, a committee of inquiry, so that they can do a thorough forensic audit of the activities of the Electoral Commission, spanning from a certain period up to the 2024 elections. And so, as for culpability, it is there. Because before they were allowed to go and do A, B, C, and D jobs, they were given the rules and regulations. The LI 126, they were, taken through that particular process. And so if something has happened and it appears to be deliberate, then obviously there is the need for culpability. No two ways about that. But we need to go forward. And how do we go forward? We need a proper declaration of the mandate of the people. And that is what exactly ought to be done. I think that must be the focus. And so we can think of what others are saying and whether others are ready or not ready. I think that the most important thing is that the people of ABLEKUMA North, unlike SAM, they need to have representation. And that for me is the main key.
I see. But then again, now we're getting to know what the NPP has decided to do. They're not taking part in this election. And now today, we're hearing as well that the court has dismissed, the High Court dismissing the application filed by Nana Akua Afriyie, the candidate for the NPP in the ABLEKUMA North in the 2024 December elections, seeking to stop the planned rerun of parliamentary elections in these 19 polling stations. So the way is clear now for the Electoral Commission, at least from what we are saying now, but the NPP is not going to take part in this election. Dr. Asantiochi.
Well, it's quite unfortunate. In this case, we've not seen people pulling guns here and there like Iowa, so as it happened, and people getting maimed here and there. This is a smooth process. I listened to the General Secretary with respect to the presser that they did. And when it got to this 19 polling stations, of which they were displaying, on the screen, the only thing he did was to go through just two of the outstanding 19 and said that, their candidate won in these two, so why would they want to go for a rerun? But the 17, he did not speak about that. You see, the picking and the choosing is not really good for our democracy and doesn't even augur well in terms of transparency. It is unfortunate that they will say a constituency that they have been winning for so many years, suddenly they are afraid to go for a rerun. I believe that if they had sincerely won, they would have insisted. It doesn't matter. If these people are ardently NPP people, nothing can change their heart or their mind. They will still go ahead to do so. But if you listen to the global info analytics data that came before the elections, it was a very close call. And so if you look at the suggestions of the time, then it means that the advantage will be, the momentum will be on the side of the NDC more than the NPP. So why would they want to go and lose? I think that it is out of bad faith. It is not based on any kind of principle. With respect to the court giving a verdict that they should do coalition, you see, the court did not say where the coalition, should take place or continue. And so if a situation has arisen and they're saying go and continue the coalition, and there are other issues that ought to be discussed, straightened, then that should be the bone of contention. So once those issues have been streamlined, then you can continue with the coalition. But here is the case, it doesn't appear that they will have the wherewithal to continue with the coalition. But you are saying it is only level 3. So at the end of the day, if you have listened to the NDC representative, I've listened to the NPP, and I think that if the NDC proposed about 50-something, you are also proposing 30-something. And then there is a middle line, according to the EC, should be 19. I think that it is now a win-win situation for both parties. And that, for me, is something that they should be able to look in the name of democracy to take part in the process. I mean, leaving it like that in itself is a betrayal of your own people. And now suddenly you are opposed to the EC that some of us criticize. You are now testing the incompetency of the EC. And suddenly you are siding with the chairman of the NDC that, well, if these people are booted out, you don't really mind. That is, for me, an unprincipled position and a betrayal of the EC, if you ask me. Because you consistently supported the EC, even in the face of incompetency. And yet, you see, that's why sometimes it worries me that Nivans Limako, for example, could not in any way, as a director of elections for the NPP, see all the errors that the NDC saw, the IT, gurus and all the deputy, director of elections saw. You never saw any of such things. So what were you doing? You see, they are all incompetent. The director of elections for the NPP
they are not here to they are not here to respond directly to you. But I want to thank you so much for your thoughts. Dr. Jonathan Asantewotwe is a political analyst, senior lecturer at the University of Cape Coast. Also to you, Ms. Solomon. Also, thank you so much for joining us with your thoughts on this matter.
Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Also joining us as well, Musa Dankwa, thank you so much for joining us here as the Executive Director of Global Info Analytics. Also doing that prediction is indicated that based on the polls, there's a strong doubt about the NPP's chances, and then also predicting a likely loss for the NPP based on the outcome of the latest poll ahead of the Friday, July 19 polling stations rerun. There's more stories we're going to get into here on Hot Edition. Chrisabel?
Yes, because the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Samuel Okudzeto,